At 60 years old, the witty celebrity you know as Rick Harrison has a tragic backstory that few people understand. A story of deep grief and surprising twists and turns lies beneath his public persona, creating a picture that is far more intricate than what a reality TV show could ever convey. Severe epilepsy, which Rick began fighting at the tender age of 8, had a dramatic impact on his formative years. He had grand mal seizures, a severe kind of epilepsy that ripped muscles in his back and legs and made him tremble wildly. Seizures were so severe that he would be bedridden for a week or two thereafter, preventing him from going to school. But he would unknowingly ignite a passion that would influence his future, despite his physical handicap. Even more terrifying incidents occurred for Rick when he was a teenager, around the ages of 14 or 15. Occasionally, he would experience a brief loss of vision, at which time his vision would dim for approximately 30 seconds. Fearing that his parents would disapprove if they found out about his horrific fights, he hid them from them. A driver's license is a precious sign of independence for young people, and he didn't want to ruin that for them. Phenobarbital, the medicine Rick used every day to control his epilepsy, greatly affected his life. He said that up until 4 p.m. every day, he felt lifeless. What this shows is the emotional and physical strain he had to bear throughout his childhood. Half of all children with epilepsy will grow out of it by the time they are 18 years old, according to Rick. Around that age, thankfully, his convulsions subsided. He was so moved by his own experience with epilepsy that he spent years serving on the Foundation's board of directors. While Rick was bedridden for extended periods of time owing to seizures, his mother would bring him library books to read. This little deed sparked a deep passion for reading in him. He had already decided that books had much better storylines and more interesting material than television by the time he was 10 years old. His astonishing business success in later years was built on his early habit of reading many books, which became the basis of his extensive knowledge. While he was a teenager, Rick freely confesses that he was a bad kid, maybe the worst of his generation. He would later become a disciplined businessman, but during this time in his life, he showed total disdain for norms and authority. As part of his defiant behavior, he would steal automobiles and motorbikes so he could travel home from across town. For weeks at a time, he and his pals would skip school, claiming to be going to midnight movies, when in reality they would have beach bonfires, smoke cannabis, and drink beer until dawn. Even though it broke down before he could reach his objective of Las Vegas, he stole his dad's motor home in one memorable episode. He was sent to a drug rehab by his parents when he was just 14 years old. But Rick insisted he was just acting irrationally and not a drug addict. Note that he first smoked weed in 4th grade. A genius test he took while in rehab confirmed his suspicions. Coincidentally, Rick claims this is the most insulting thing anyone could ever say to a brazen youth like him, since it simply served to solidify his conviction that he could disregard the opinions of others. The heartbreaking and deep-seated fear of Rick's impending death from epilepsy was a driving force behind his dangerous and careless actions. This unwavering conviction propelled him to believe, "I can do anything," which in turn fueled his recklessness, lack of self-control, and carelessness. Early on, Rick's financial acumen was evident, even in apparently little ways. For example, when working as a newspaper router with a friend, he discovered a cunning method. After they removed all of the sheets from the machine, they would pay 50 cents for a single sheet. Then, they could make even more money by selling the additional papers to anyone who discovered the machine was empty. His entrepreneurial acumen flourished. He made $2,000 in a single weekend after becoming one of the first vendors in Las Vegas to peddle knockoff Gucci handbags. After seeing that others were peddling knockoff handbags, he swiftly shifted his focus to selling knockoff Jordache jeans, which maintained their popularity and financial success at the time. One of the most thrilling jobs Rick has ever had was that of a repo man, whose job it is to seize vehicles from their rightful owners when payments are overdue. He enjoyed the exhilaration of motor racing and justified his actions as lawful. His account of the day he reclaimed an automobile is crystal clear. Entering the garage of a Honda dealership, he maneuvered a large truck using a specialized rope. He proceeded to drive out of the lot after transferring the owner's truck onto his own. Unnoticed by anyone, he accomplished all of this. His audacity and cunning are on full display in this brave deed. An uncommon option was made by Rick when he dropped out of school in 10th grade. He primarily had two motives. To begin with, he was already flush with cash from peddling counterfeit items. Second, he would fail classes since he missed so much school due to his frequent hospitalizations caused by his epilepsy. He had complete faith in his abilities and thought he could outmake his school-bound peers financially. Furthermore, he believed that a large library could provide him with all the knowledge he required. A month-long stint as a busboy at the Stardust, the illustrious hotel inspired by the setting of the film Casino, was Rick's sole employment involving a supervisor. The waitress who did not pay him his fair amount of tips dismissed him because he would not clear her tables. He became even more self-reliant and demonstrated his dislike for injustice as a result of this brief encounter. All of Rick's early jobs, even the sketchy ones, were crucial to his development. Not only were they immoral, but they taught him valuable lessons about running a successful business. Dealing with people, estimating risks, and thinking quickly were all skills he honed. Rick says that his father, Richard Benjamin Harrison, also known as the Old Man, instilled in him the value of hard labor. His father was a remarkable man who rarely missed work due to illness. Just 4 days following his open-heart surgery, he returned to work. At the tender age of 12, Rick began helping out around the house with his father's construction business, where he would earn a pitiful $1.50 per hour. Cleaning and disassembling objects were among his laborious tasks. He began working on houses' roofs and electrical systems when he was just 13 years old. At the age of 13, he vividly recalls the day his father had him construct the roof of a whole garage apartment by himself. The moment Rick cursed at his father at the age of 16 was a watershed moment. In an effort to teach him a lesson, his father swiftly struck him in the face. "When you're old enough, you can treat me with the respect due a man and whip your ass like one." This was a profound lesson in the value of words, and Rick took it to heart. No matter how difficult the lessons were, Rick always looked forward to helping out at the pawn store with his dad. Cooperating with his best friend was how he viewed it. According to Rick, his mother worked non-stop, and he used to assist her organize swap meetings when he was a kid. But he's not shy about stating that he and his mom aren't very close, saying that they don't get along very well. However, he maintains that he loves her and is grateful for her unwavering support during his many hospital stays as a child. She even sued him after their relationship had public disputes. With the words, "I'm going to try," Rick makes it plain that he still wants to mend their relationship, no matter how tough things get. To Rick, Sherry Joanne Harrison was an elder sister who had Down syndrome at birth. Her birth resulted in astronomical medical expenditures. Concerned about the high expense of medical care in the future, this was a major factor in his father's decision to remain in the Navy, even after Rick had epilepsy. Tragically, Rick's sister died when he was just 2 years old. Even though he has no recollection of the tragedy, his loved ones were undoubtedly profoundly impacted. The pregnancy of Rick's first girlfriend was a complete shock to him. He had just turned 16 years old, yet his age was later changed to 17 by him. She unfortunately suffered a miscarriage after they were married. She became pregnant again after this early loss, and again not long after the birth of their son, Corey. This meant that, at the shockingly early age of 20, Rick was left with two small children. According to Rick, a dramatic and immediate change in his life's trajectory occurred when he had children. He stopped being a complete moron and started working hard. After a while, he and his first wife divorced. An important choice that changed his ex-girlfriend's life was made a few months down the road. She left the kids with him and never came back. Because of this, Rick was left to take care of his young children alone. Raising a family as a single man was incredibly challenging for him. But the strong work ethic and can-do attitude he inherited from his dad helped him succeed. To ensure his family's financial stability, he worked harder and did double duty as a dad. Rick wed Tracy after some time, and the couple had a son together when he was little. He began seeing another woman who was a mother of 3 after they broke up. Legally adopting Serena, the youngest daughter, was a major commitment on his part. As a sign of his devotion to his new family, he married her mother and claimed she was an integral part of the union. There are 3 biological sons and 3 stepdaughters in Rick's family. He freely admits that being a girl dad has profoundly altered his personality, making him more empathetic and gentle. As a way to express his newfound emotions, he makes light of the fact that girls cry for no apparent reason. His recent display of passion at the wedding of his middle daughter was indicative of this new side of him. He was really close to Serena. Their conversations would be full of life as he showed her the proper way to pour whiskey or bourbon. Serena claims that these conversations exposed Rick's unconventional approach to child-rearing and influenced her own interests and ambitions. Rick Harrison's son, Adam's death, was the worst sorrow he has ever faced. From the time he was a teenager onward, Adam battled serious issues. Rick, a kind father, repeatedly attempted to help Adam by placing him in rehabilitation. Adam, however, would never stop using narcotics. Tragically, Adam passed away in January 2024 after a lengthy battle with addiction. He had overdosed on fentanyl. For Rick, this loss will always be an enduring source of sorrow. For him, it is the most devastating and sorrowful moment imaginable. Rick is overcome with grief and can't stop wondering what he could have done to spare his son's life. There isn't a day that goes by without him crossing my mind, he admits, honestly. He says he tried everything, even getting Adam jailed, in the hopes that it would motivate him to stop using. The severity of Adam's addiction was demonstrated when, while incarcerated, he contacted his brother to express his excitement at being released to use DS again. As far as Rick is concerned, there is no manual for dealing with children, and he is utterly unprepared for an OD. He finds solace in reflecting on his happy memories with Adam and in spending time with his other children and 4 granddaughters, which helps him cope with his suffering. Because good things aren't always easy to come by, this harrowing event taught him to be grateful for what he has. Additionally, it prompted him to cherish every moment with his family. They warned Rick, a brazen 22-year-old, that acquiring a pawn license was next to impossible. When the city's population hit 25,000, he discovered an ancient ordinance that stated an additional license would be issued. Till April of 1988, Rick dialed the city's phone. Upon learning that the city has hit that milestone, Rick, accompanied by his lawyer, overcame opposition and obtained the license for only $50 in court. Rules shifted after him, and licenses fetch multi-million-dollar prices today. Tradition dictated that his father should have the license. For Rick, it was like winning $1 million. Rick cultivated an inquisitive, well-informed, and eccentric pawn shop, which led to its success in dealing in gold and silver. To get people's attention, he showed off things like Super Bowl rings and copies of Picasso's work. He tried to get free publicity by doing things like selling Super Bowl rings on eBay for exorbitant prices. Just because it said so, he went so far as to paint the building world famous. For a long time, Rick was advised that no one was interested in seeing a reality show about four overweight men working at a pawn store. After filming a pilot for his one-year deal with HBO, the network did little to pursue it. He thought the pilot was awful. Two underage film students recorded Rick after HBO without an agreement. To television networks, they sent DVDs. Rick was contacted by a tiny business known as Left Field Pictures. Rick expedited filming by using a ploy using NBC Universal. He had his father's skepticism. Someone in charge at History Channel immediately ordered a pilot after a DVD player broke. Beginning in July 2009, History Channel's Pawn Stars surpassed all other premieres, including NFL games, in terms of viewership. The audience for one program was 7.7 million. Never got past the habit of finding fault whenever he was on television. The store needed to implement crowd control measures after the episode aired because of the overwhelming number of customers. Despite network demands for more drama, Rick maintained Pawn Stars will always be a family show. He attributes its popularity to its seriousness and educational content. After more than 700 episodes, Pawn Stars is no longer airing on History Channel and has been put on hiatus since early 2025. This presents a fresh opportunity for Rick. His newfound freedom has brought opportunities for guest spots on other shows as well as his own podcast. Many people speculate about Rick Harrison's wealth, although he himself claims that nobody has any idea. He amasses his fortune through Pawn Stars, pay reruns, souvenirs, and worldwide shows. Thanks in part to the influx of tourists, his pawn store for precious metals earns over $5 million per year. Roughly 33% of it is owned by Rick. Book sales, speaking engagements, and investments in technology and digital currency also contribute to his income. He runs a rental company in addition to his coin, jewelry, art, restaurant, and bar operations. After Rick's power system at Oregon Ranch needed new batteries, he put his money into battery startup Dragonfly Energy. He also constructed Pond Plaza, a food court and retail center adjacent to his store, out of repurposed shipping containers. The structures are classified as mobile homes, which allows him to pay property tax solely on the land, which presents significant tax savings for this project, while deducting the building's rapidly declining worth from his taxes. On his honeymoon, Rick discovered 80 acres in Oregon, which he now owns. An ancient woodland adorned with towering trees. A dorm and a residence for the caretakers were both constructed by him. He created his own electricity by repeatedly repairing a 1952 turbine, which he compared to a little Hoover Dam. His own power system and windmills were also added. He enjoys spending approximately 4 months of the year in remote areas, living independently from the power grid. There is a huge shop on the grounds where auto components are made, as well as a sawmill, drying ovens, and various metalworking machines. Rick has not sought for the rumored 1,000-pound meteorite that is said to be buried in the area. To Rick, it's all about the cars. The 1966 Crown Imperial convertible that he and Corey restored for his dad is still in his possession. Along with motorcycles, a 1940 Plymouth, and a 1947 Power Wagon, he also owns a 1940 Chevy. On his ranch, he uses a Volkswagen thing that he restored. When he gets off work, he loves to fix up his cars. Rick's devotion to reading began at a young age and has only grown since then. He dedicated 3 to 4 hours each night to reading, primarily history and science, for nearly 30 years. He frequently searches Amazon for the history of things, and he enjoys discovering strange literature. In order to understand his power system, he read 2 books on the subject of battery history. Precious books are among his possessions. Buying one might cost as much as $100,000. Some of the books in his collection date back to the 1400s, and among them is a first edition by John Locke. Notable politicians like Donald Trump are Rick's acquaintances. He goes on to say that Trump is a very intelligent man with an incredible memory. An interesting anecdote he recounts involves Trump phoning him to express regret following an oops with the Secret Service during a rally. This revealed Trump's more human side. After some time has passed, he has dropped hints that he is considering a run for governor. Being pleased of his charitable activities, he thinks he can make the world a better place when he leaves it. Rick recently sought for a fourth marriage after already been married 3 times. The marital asset protection document known as a prenuptial agreement has never been signed by him. Money, he claims, is not everything, and that he is content. In his personal life, he tries to avoid arguments. He explains, he says that being joyful is fairly simple and that people should avoid pessimists. Numerous well-known faces have entered the store. Some of these artists include Rick's friend and legendary guitarist Ronnie Montrose, Bret Michaels, with whom Rick performs on stage, Billy Gibbons, and Steve Carell. Even Dave Chappelle shops there, sometimes incognito. For the many women in his life, a wealthy man would frequently stop by to purchase jewelry. Once, a Southeast Asian finance minister attempted to pawn diplomatic articles. Until he was paid, Rick would not relinquish them. On a separate occasion, a trust fund beneficiary would risk spending all $27,000 of his monthly paycheck on gambling before pawning his valuables to cover expenses. For some reason, Rick always thought that robbing a person of their driver's license was a greater penalty than a couple of days in prison. There was one altercation in the shop that left him with a fractured face, among many others. The fact that they are made of gold is the main reason Rick buys them. For 5 years, he sported a knockoff Rolex as a constant reminder to himself not to be so proud. Because he considered rings to be insignificant, he even sized other rings using his own wedding bands. He made a tidy sum when he sold the first Patriot Super Bowl ring. He considers his one and only 100-year-old Viking bracelet, recovered from a Viking treasure, to be among his most prized possessions. Additionally, he featured the O.J. Bronco, which he believed to be cursed, on the show.